Welcome back to Brit's Book Corner. Today's video is going to be the story of the worst beta reader experience I had in 2019. If I need to say that this is in no way bashing anybody or, telling anybody anything. I'm not going to mention names. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just going to tell you the story of why I call this the worst beta reading experience. Let's begin with the reason I chose this woman. So I sent my book out to 6 people. I interviewed 6 people, and this woman was one of them. 5 of them wanted the full manuscript, and 1 wanted the first 3 chapters. The woman I'm talking about wanted the first 3 chapters. So when I interviewed her, she pretty much told me that she wanted to read the first 3 chapters to see if it would be a good fit for her. If the book read well for her, if, it drew her in, if it would be the type of thing she would want to read. And she didn't want the full manuscript just in case she couldn't finish it and be obligated to finish it. She then told me that she would be open to answering any questions I had. So I had questions. I asked her, I said, what type of feedback are you willing to give? And she said, well, I'm willing to give any kind of feedback. I'm willing to just, I'm willing to put things nicely. I never put things too rude. I don't get offended, so I'm not going to let any topics that are offensive offend me. I'm not one of those people that find things wrong and nitpick it to death. I'm not one of those people that'll sit there and just bluntly say this story is crap. I'll sit there and I'll explain my reasonings behind why I don't like the story or why I don't like this or why I don't like that. She said, I will give you my honest truth opinion. I will look at it as if I'm reading the book for the first time. And I just purchased this book and I'm going to look at it with brand new eyes. I don't know anything about this book other than what the description is you provided me. And so I said, great, that sounds exactly like what I'm looking for. Because at that point, I was just looking for somebody to tell me, did the book read right? Did, were my characters believable? Was the dialogue smooth? Did the dialogue feel natural or was it forced? All that kind of thing. So at that point, when she answered all those questions, I kind of knew that's what we were going to do. So I said, great, you sound like a great fit. Shoot me your email and I will give you the first 3 chapters. I said it'll be about 12 pages. And she said, okay, great. And she sent me her email. So once I got her email, I sent her the manuscript. She looked it over. She quickly sent me back. We first originally started talking on Facebook. And so she sent me a message on Facebook, said, I got it. It'll take me about 3 to 4 days to read it and give you my full opinion on it. I said, that's totally fine. She said, exactly what are you looking for now that I have it? I said, I sent a few questions with it, and those questions were, readability. How did it read? Did it feel natural? Did it feel forced? How did the dual POV work? Did it feel like it was 2 different people or 1 person? Everything along those lines. And she said, okay, I will definitely keep those in mind. So over time, she kept checking in. She said, I'm reading it. So far, it's pretty good. And that was about 2 days in. And then the 4th day, she messaged me on Facebook and she said, okay, I finished reading it. I'm finalizing all my notes and comments on your document and I'll email it back to you in about 10 minutes. I said, okay, great. She said, overall, the book was great. The book was awesome. I loved it. It's something that I would like to read more of. I just don't have time to be beta reading anymore. I said, okay, that's fine. She said the dialogue seemed great. The characters were great. I loved every aspect of it. There are a few tweaks that need to be done, and there's one minor thing, keyword there is minor, thing that needs to be adjusted in your plot. And I said, okay, great. I will definitely look at that right now and get started on making my list of notes. After she sent me that, and she told me a little bit about how she loved the book, and all of her good things that made me really happy and thinking that this was going to be a great start, she sent me the email and I read it. And my whole premise of reading it was to read what her critiques were and take notes so that when it went back in to do another set of revisions on that story, I could use her notes as background. So I was going to take notes on every single beta reader that had my book, and I was going to write down all the notes everything, and then go through and see who had what the recurring themes were and who liked what and what I could tweak. And so I prepared all of that. I opened the document, and I don't really know what I was expecting. So after she sent me all that, she sent me the email. And before I opened the email, I set up a Word document to take notes in for all my beta readers that were going to have my book. I wanted to take notes for each beta reader so that I could have all the general consensus of what was going to happen and, you know, what they liked, what they didn't like, all that stuff, so I could compare and make notes ready for revision. So once I got it all set up and I got her page started, I opened up the email, and it was just the document. There was no body of the email, there was no words, there was no nothing. It was just the document. So I was like, okay, fine. You know, maybe she meant to send something, or maybe she sent it to me on Facebook. I don't really know, but it is what it is. So I opened the document, and I was not expecting what I saw. What I saw in this document was half a page of nothing but highlight. It was a Google Doc, so when you make comments, it highlights and you can see what comment goes where. And it was a solid wall of highlights. There was no breaks in between. It was just like sentence after sentence after sentence was highlight. And so I was like, oh my God, like this is crazy. So I went through and I started clicking on comments. And at first she was like, oh, you know, it doesn't matter what color shoes go with the black dress because anything goes with black dresses. I was just like, wow, you know, all I said was black pumps to match. And that was the first thing that she said. And that to me was like, wow, that's okay, because that's not what I asked, but okay. So I jotted it down. And then it just kind of kept going on. Like, she kept nitpicking. And the first thing that she really nitpicked that I felt like she didn't know anything about was my main character found a jewelry receipt in her boyfriend's pants pocket for a diamond engagement ring. And her comment was, jewelry stores do not put the item on receipts. And I was like, what? I was like, okay. Yes, they do, because my husband's bought 2 rings, and for warranty purposes, I have to keep both receipts, and on them it says exactly what item it was. And so with Google Docs, you can reply back to comments. And so I just said, yes, they do. You know, I even sent her a picture, and I said, this is what it looks like. This is exactly where I got my inspiration. And I kept reading. And there was a comment about the fact that my character found out that she had been the other woman for 2 years, that he got together with her right around his 2-year anniversary with the woman he was originally with. And she told me that that does not happen in the real world, that women are not oblivious to this. And I was just like, okay, you know, those were her comments, and I just jotted them down. And I was like, okay, you know, maybe she's, you know, just trying to like help me further my story. And about this time is when she replied to the comment about the jewelry store receipt. And she commented back, you have to convince me. That receipt's not convincing because you can Photoshop everything. You need to convince me. I was like, okay, so I just ignored that comment and I kept reading. After my main character found out she was the other woman, she went to a bar and she got drunk. She didn't pay attention to what bar she was at, so she just, when her brother called, she just didn't tell him where she was because she didn't know. And that right there, like, was another thing that she nitpicked. How she should know where she's at. How she shouldn't go to a bar and get drunk if she can't tell her brother what bar she's at. You know, why would she go to a bar and get drunk? Like, no woman in their right mind would do that and go to a bar alone. It was just thing after thing after thing for this one thing. It was like 20 comments for her going to a bar to get drunk. And then, you know, I had the bartender tell her, you know, the best way to get over a man is to get under a new one. I mean, I've heard that, you know, so many times, and that's just such a cliche advice that I was like, well, throw it into this book, because that's, you know, that's going to be the thing that spurs her forward. And she did. She got drunk, and she slept with her brother's best friend. That getting drunk and sleeping with her brother's best friend is what really kicked off every single red flag that I should have noticed before and brought them to the forefront. So she literally wrote a very lengthy comment on this. I'm not going to say it word for word because I don't remember it all. But basically she said, it is offensive that I said she got drunk and slept with somebody because that's rape. He took advantage of the situation knowing she was inebriated, and she slept with him. You know, she legally couldn't have said yes. She was drunk. No drunk person should ever have sex because it's against the law. And I was just like, whoa, 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 whoa. So I read it and I commented back. I said, in no way was she written like she was completely inebriated, drunk off her ass, nothing. Like, nothing like that was written. She was written, yes, she was a little drunk, she was a little tipsy. She was not written as a belligerent drunk, she was not written as like, no, that's not what my intention was. I told her, I said, originally my intention was to write her as she wasn't drunk enough to not be able to say yes. Never in my intention was it to be anything to call rape. And she goes, well, don't you know anything about the Me Too movement? Don't you know that that's rape? Don't you know that getting drunk in a bar and sleeping with somebody is rape? She could be arrested. This book needs to not be written because that's very, very offensive. And immediately I was like, well, you told me you didn't get offended. Like, you told me you didn't get offended. So I was just like, wow. And so I just kind of like passed it on. I kept writing her notes. And it got to the point where my character started feeling early pregnancy symptoms. Now, she tried to tell me that no woman ever feels pregnancy symptoms before they're 9 weeks. I said, that's absolutely insane, because my second baby, I found out I was pregnant at 6 weeks, and I had pregnancy symptoms as early as 3 weeks. Like, as early as 3 weeks. And I just went 3 weeks without knowing because I was oblivious to the fact that I was pregnant again. And I said some women feel pregnancy symptoms differently. Some women feel them early, some women feel them late. Every woman, every pregnancy is different, and this is what I told her. And it went back to, you need to convince me of this. You need to find a doctor that can back that up. You need to find this. You need to find that. You need to write me a letter telling me and making me believe this before I can tell you I like this book. I was like, you already done told me you like this book. So I was like, after that, I was just like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? Because this woman told me she'd beta read for a long time, and she did it all the time, and she gave really great feedback, and she gave me references, and I like, you know, I did everything that I needed to do. So I continue to read through the book, and it's convince me of this, convince me of that, convince me of this. You know, why is she in college? Why did she stay at his house that night? Why did he tell her family that she stayed the night at his house even though he was her brother's best friend? Why did her family not go and pick her up? Why is she living with her family and then suddenly at a dorm? She moved, and literally it was written as a scene that she moved. She packed up her car, moved to her dorm. Why did she suddenly go from living in her parents' house to living in a dorm? Why did she suddenly go, if she can live at home, why can't she go to college from home? No kid wants to drive from home to college. Of course, every kid's dream is to live in a dorm for the parties. But I didn't say anything. I just let it go. And then near the end, she basically, in the very last comment, there was no really highlight necessary for this, but in the last comment, she said, here's the thing. If you change the rape, the drunkenness, the fact that the main character is flat out stupid, the fact that the main male character got her pregnant and you swear up and down she can tell she's pregnant early, if you change the fact that she went from living at home to a dorm, if you change everything I commented on, that'll be 100% better book, and I will guarantee you it will sell. I was like, what? So at this point, after reading all of this, my heart sank. Because immediately, there were 5 other people after this woman that had my book, that had the full book. So I was like, if there's so much wrong with this book in the first 3 chapters, what's wrong with the other 27? Like, what's wrong with the other 27? I was like, oh my God. Like, at first, I was just like, I took everything in, and every little thing that she made a critique on, I literally took it as, oh my God, something is really wrong. And for weeks, it was like 2 weeks, that I sat there and I just kept saying, oh my God, I gotta fix all this stuff. Oh my God, there's so much I gotta fix. And I was talking to one of my best friends from high school because she wrote stories, I wrote stories in high school. We read the same books as each other. We wrote the same stories pretty much, the same type of stories anyway. And I beta read for her in high school, she beta read for me, and it was just, we threw things back and forth. So I reached out to her. I said, I had a really weird experience with somebody reading a story, and I need to know if you have the same issues. So can I send you the exact same content she had, that with none of her critique on it, just the same content she had? Will you read it and will you give me your honest thoughts? And she said, okay, what kind of thoughts? I said, I'm not going to lead you. I said, this is exactly the feedback I'm looking for. I gave her the exact same list I gave this other woman. And I said, this is what I'm looking for. Can you give me that feedback? It took my best friend about a week to read the first 12 pages of my book because she was in college and she does work. So she read it and she messaged me back. And she said, it's good. I mean, there are a few things that need to be worked out. You've got quite a few typos, which I already knew. She said there are a few things that need to be tweaked, like misspellings of names, because, you know, I like to spell names uniquely, and Microsoft Word does not like to honor that. And, you know, there are just things that need to be fixed. She said there's nothing really big wrong with the plot or anything. There's nothing big with this. There's nothing big with that. I said, okay, well, now I have a specific question. I said, what about the scene where she gets drunk and has sex with her brother's best friend? I said, does that even remotely come off as rape? And she said, oh, no. She goes, the woman wasn't drunk. Wasn't drunk enough to not be able to say yes. She knew exactly what she was doing. And she had a level head on her shoulders. She knew. She wasn't drunk enough to say no. You know, she wasn't drunk enough to not be able to say no if she didn't want it. And I said, okay, thank you. Once I realized I had really bad critiques and really good critiques, my mind automatically went into, my book's not going to be for everyone. And that is something that I had to really embrace, because my book's not going to be for everyone. At first, I wanted every person to love my book. And that's really what my mind was when I wrote this book, is I want everyone to love this book. But once I got those critiques, and I talked to my husband about it because he knew I was sending it out to the beta readers, and he knew I was really nervous. I talked to him about it, and he asked me what the book was about, because he never really asked me what it was about. So I told him, and he goes, oh. Oh, that's all he said, oh. So right then, I knew that not every person is going to fall in love with my book. Rusty. Sorry, my dog's doing something crazy. But not every person is going to fall in love with my book. Not every single person is going to love my book. My book is not going to be for everyone. And so once I embraced that, once I embraced all the critiques and I actually started thinking about it, I was thankful for this woman. Because A, it taught me what not to look for in a beta reader. Because even though her harsh critique style may work for some authors, it's not going to work for me. So in no way am I bashing this woman. Her critiquing style just was not for me. I was grateful for the fact that she took the time to read my 12 pages, and she did it in a timely fashion. I became grateful for the fact that I actually finished the book, and I was grateful to myself for actually sending it out, because I'm not one of those people that step out of my comfort zone very often. So that's it for my really bad beta reading experience. Now again, I have to say I was not trying to bash this woman. I was not trying to be mean or harsh or anything. I just wanted to tell this story because I learned a lot about myself from this. I learned a lot about what I am going to look for in a beta reader in the future, and I learned what kind of critiquing style is not for me. Just because this woman has a really harsh critiquing style does not mean it won't be for everyone, and I have to say that some people really like that harsh critique style. I'm just not one of them. So, I hope you guys liked this video. Please give it a thumbs up and comment down below if you've had a really similar beta reading experience. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.